We now return to Motor City Burning, a special presentation of WILS News.
Charles Henry and Joseph Brown, two black plainclothes officers who served on Sergeant Arthur Howison's Vice Squad, began to seek access to the Blind Pig at 9125 12th Street on the corner of Claremont Avenue on the evening of July 22nd. They tried in vain till about 3 a.m. Sunday morning, when they were able to slip inside in the accompaniment of two unknown women, as then Police Commissioner Ray Girardin explained in a 1971 interview.
At 3 o'clock they were passing the place and they saw two rather well-dressed girls, unaccompanied, who were obviously not prostitutes, headed for the door, and one of the Vice Squad guys on a hunch said, "Stop the car, let's go, we're going with them." Because, see, you get a better chance of getting in later than early for two reasons. One is the doorman has had a few drinks by that time, as a rule, and he's a little more careless. And two is he's busy, and the third, he's tired. So they just got right up against these girls, and the doorman just passed them this time, where he turned them down 5 hours before.
10 minutes later, Howison, another squad member, and two other officers smashed open the downstairs entry door, and the raid was on. Commissioner Girardin.
Remember, when the raid took place, when the police did start to bring out of the Blind Pig the prisoners, the crowd was in a jovial mood. They were hollering at him, "Well, we'll send you some cigarettes for Jackson, Joe," and, bantering back and forth. But gradually, and this damn transport business took so long, gradually the temper of the crowd turned and was being changed, and according to the police who were there and what they tell me in putting it together, the crowd was manipulated.
Hubert Locke, who lived in the vicinity of 12th and Claremont, got a call about the raid at his home early Sunday morning.
My next-door neighbor, Conrad Mallett, was the assistant to the mayor, and his son was the neighborhood paper boy, and he came back home about, whenever, 4 o'clock or so in the morning, having gone to pick up his newspapers somewhere close by the Blind Pig. He came back home and told his dad that something was happening on 12th Street, and Conrad called me. That was the first alert I had, and said, there's trouble on 12th Street, and I immediately called headquarters, and they said, we're just getting the first reports of some difficulty up there, and mobilization orders are in effect.
Because of manpower and equipment shortages, the first paddy wagon did not arrive on the scene until nearly 4 a.m., and the last of the prisoners were not taken away until nearly 5 a.m. By then, according to Commissioner Girardin, the corner of 12th and Claremont was in near chaos.
The last car that was pulling away, someone threw a bottle or a rock through the back window. The car had a couple of prisoners. Now, I think wisely they kept right on going. Then, it wasn't long before somebody threw something through a plate glass window. Then the thing sort of built.
Sergeant Lawrence Mulvihill and Lieutenant Raymond Good arrived on the scene just after 5 a.m. As Good stepped out of a car to investigate, he was hit in the head by a piece of concrete. The two officers quickly saw they were outnumbered and sped away. Joe Brown, the plainclothes officer who had infiltrated the Blind Pig some 2 hours before, remained behind and witnessed the young people who had gathered during the raid now began to throw large objects and smash the first store windows. By dawn on July 23rd, the long-awaited and feared Detroit riot was officially underway. The experiences of the 1965 Watts riot, as well as the earlier Newark and Tampa disturbances of 1967, showed that a strong and forceful police presence at the beginning of a disturbance was the best method of quelling further escalation. In the aforementioned cities, the authorities sat on their hands early on, thinking that less police would mean less destruction. The move proved to be disastrous. Despite those lessons, and the lessons of the Kercheval incident a year before, Detroit authorities chose largely the same tactic. Officer X was on duty that Sunday morning. He was told to report to Herman Kiefer Hospital, located just blocks from the corner of 12th and Claremont. That site had been set up as a command center. He recalls the scene that morning.
We were told to get over to Herman Kiefer Hospital. Something was happening. And we go over to Herman Kiefer Hospital. We got there, and there's all kinds of cops from everywhere were over there. And there we sat. And then we heard what was going on. There was a riot going on 12th Street.
By 6 a.m., about 30 windows had been smashed in the riot area, and the Detroit police had made their first looting arrest. By 7 a.m., Detroit authorities had alerted state police, the Michigan National Guard, the Wayne County Sheriff and Prosecutor, and the FBI. Also by 7 a.m., the police were sending 3 car units comprised of 12 officers into the 12th Street area. The crowd had grown to nearly 3,000 by this time, making it impossible for the squad cars to make it down the street, let alone restore order. 8 a.m. saw the police, with only approximately 360 officers in the riot area, and despite riot control tactics that advised against such a maneuver, attempted to sweep 12th Street with 2 12-man V formations. It was a tactic that had failed in Watts and would fail on 12th Street too. Hubert Locke explains.
I can remember, because I was out on 12th Street that entire morning, watching the squads of police officers in riot gear, I think 11 of them, moving in a V-shaped formation up 12th Street, sweeping the street of people, clearing the mobs in front of them. But if you know the geography of that area, what the mob of people would do would, of course, to move ahead of the police, but then they'd go off in the side streets, come through the alleyways behind the commercial buildings on 12th Street itself. There's an alley on each side that runs parallel to 12th Street, so that one could, if one was running ahead of the police, you just peel off on one of those side streets, almost make a U-turn and come around behind the commercial establishment, come out a block or two behind the police, and then begin to pelt the police officers with bottles or whatever else they could find. So it was a tactic that was just doomed to failure almost for the start, because once again, we didn't have enough officers. Once a block was swept, under ideal circumstances, we would have stationed then police officers on that block to keep crowds from reforming. We didn't have enough people to do that.
Police then simply tried to seal off the 12th Street area to limit the damage, but they did not have enough manpower available to execute that tactic either. At roughly 11 a.m., another ill-advised tactic was tried, when a group of local black leaders was dispatched to the area to try and talk down the rioters. When Congressman John Conyers grabbed a bullhorn and climbed atop a car at the intersection of 12th and Hazelwood, he was met with anger, flying objects, and shouts of Uncle Tom.
Motor City Burning, a special presentation of WILS News, will continue in a moment.